a brain scan, and a physical. The benefit of seeing a neurologist is he can determine if what you're experiencing is temporary or permanent. There are illnesses that reflect themselves like dementia, but they are curable. So you need to have that done and know what you're dealing with. And my husband's diagnosis was cognitive impairment. Well, maybe I was married to a medical doctor, but I was not a medical doctor. I had no idea what that was. The doctor said he takes in the information, but it just rotates out again, especially new information. And so when we arrived home, I went on to the Alzheimer's website, and there were listed 10 items that are early signs of dementia. Memory loss, challenges in planning, difficulty with tasks, confusion with time and place. And I used to tell my friends, it's not so much he's forgetful, he's just so confused, and that's new to me. I didn't want to read the other 5 items. I slammed the computer shut. I closed my eyes and said, no, this can't be happening to us. I felt we were facing impossible odds. I was in denial. I was paralyzed. I really didn't know what I was going to do. This was the early stage for my husband. In the early stage, one can still drive, they can still work, and be engaged in social activities. Years ago, we'd say, oh, Grandpa can't remember anything. That was senility. That word is rarely used today. Unfortunately, my husband suffered from vascular dementia. Memory loss, impaired judgment, difficulty finding words, and eventually the inability to care for self. Worldwide, there are 50 million people battling this illness. Research has revealed there are 120 Americans who will lose their battle with this disease. Every 65 seconds, if you can believe that, just in the United States, someone develops the disease. 1 in 3 seniors dies from this disease. And dementia now is killing more people than many forms of cancer. Over 6 million Americans currently live with this devastating condition. What is dementia? It's a brain disorder that destroys your memory. My husband was a major decision maker. He was an ophthalmologist and eye surgeon for 30 years. 10 of those years on the board of directors for one of the largest HMOs in the country, Kaiser Permanente. When he retired a Navy commander, and upon retirement became vice president of MOA, Military Officers Association of America. Now, my beloved husband could not make a simple decision. It was very difficult for me to accept him misplacing items and eventually, of course, stepping away from social engagements. And those little yellow Post-it notes were becoming a decorator item in our home. I joined the Alzheimer's support group because I had to learn how to live with a person with this illness. Number one, you never, ever argue with them. It didn't matter if my husband said he was flying out with the military tomorrow. I would say, okay, we'll get you ready for tomorrow. Never argue. They always are right. Yeah. And it's also one question at a a time, which is probably hard for a lot of us women. We're like, we're going to the market, then we're going over here, and then we're going there. One question or one statement at a time. Friends were saying, I don't think there's anything wrong with Coral. He seems okay to me. Of course, I was putting out my good vibes like a good cheerleader, staying upbeat, arranging my supportive white facade. Why? Because this was happening in our home. I was embarrassed. I didn't want anyone to know about what we were dealing with. I was dealing with behavior that was so unpredictable, and our lives were falling apart in disorder, confusion, and chaos. However, friends and family eventually found out. I drove in the driveway one day. My neighbor ran across the street. What's wrong with Coral, she asked. I said, well, what do you need? Well, he knocked on our door. He was looking for you. He didn't know where you were. The person with dementia wants to be found, but they don't want to be found out. Now, you as a caregiver, you're exhausted. A 24-hour day has changed into a 36-hour day. You're exhausted while you're grieving massively. The job is overwhelming, and you need advanced planning because you are the keeper of their diary, keeper of their calendar, keeper of their appointments. I was the keeper of my husband. And it requires a great deal of patience as they repeat themselves over and over again. Now, in middle stage, typically this is the longest stage and can last for many years, requiring a greater level of care. There can be increased risk of danger as the person with dementia can start to wander. Once again, little poster notes on the front door, do not open. Sometimes you have to put an extra lock on the door so that they can't wander out. Middle stage is also the time where it's really important, if you can still engage with that person, to find out passwords, end-of-life wishes, healthcare directives, where property is located, where finances are. Will you have a will, or will you have a trust, or do you have those things already in place? We were also experiencing sleepless nights. My husband was starting to roam. We had a pretty big house. He would roam around at night, thinking somebody was entering. I had put night lights in all the rooms so it wouldn't be dark. But he was convinced somebody was in our house. Homeless people sleeping in our bedroom. I called the neurologist to tell him what we were experiencing because his sleepless nights became my sleepless nights. And we were both trying to keep our normal schedules, but it was becoming more and more difficult. So the neurologist recommended a tiny little pill, which my husband took maybe 2-3 times. Well, the hallucinations became worse. So I called the doctor again. He said, take him off that medication. It's not good for him. He also said there are other medications, but the side effects, well, you don't want to know. They can die. I'm like, well, I don't understand how you give somebody a pill to help them and it may kill them. But anyway. Also, you have the issue of them wanting to continue driving, because that's something they've always done. I wasn't sure how I was going to handle that. The neurologist handled it for me, because he must, by law, contact the Department of Motor Vehicles to let them know there's a person with this illness and driving may be a problem. And I learned things as this journey continued And one of the things I learned about driving is sometimes the illness doesn't let you see a green or red light. You now can't distinguish the difference. That's just one of the minor things in driving. This was also becoming a pivotal moment in our lives. It's sort of like today, things are manageable, but those same things are no longer manageable tomorrow. So I thought it out, and I said, do I want to have in-home care where I have people coming and going like a revolving door in our home, or do I want to make a move? And I made the decision to make a move. I had the house packed up, just enough furniture that would go into a one-bedroom apartment, and we moved to senior housing. And the reason I did that is because I knew eventually my husband was going into memory care, and I wanted to be right there with them, close. We were only in senior housing for 2 months, and he was placed into memory care. And he actually was in more than one memory care home because I'm like a guard or a police. I want to know everything that's happening. I was there every day. They usually require you to stay away for 1 week, which is normal. Mm-hmm. But memory care, remember, it may be locked down, but it's not a prison. We still enjoy dinners out, the theater, movies, what have you. We had a life, although we were living separately. But I was just right across the courtyard from him. It wasn't easy putting my husband in memory care because I was grateful he was safe, he was content, and he was engaged. But I had resentment of the illness, confusion, and a little relief, but a heck of a lot of guilt. And when I placed him in that particular day, I went back to my little apartment, and I literally slept for 2 days straight. I didn't even eat. I just slept. I had no idea how exhausted I was. But after 2 days, I had to kick into gear because I had a big house that I had to get stuff out of and put it on the market for rental. I heard a psychologist once talk about ambiguous loss. Ambiguous loss is a quiet club that grieves in the shadows. It's women who have miscarried or have maybe children who are addicted to drugs, or a disabled child, or in my case, a chronically ill spouse. Ambiguous loss. It's loss that falls short of death, and that's complicated. There are no poems, no tributes, no mourning, no resolution. Life just plays out in a purgatory of what ifs. As Nancy Reagan said about President Reagan, this is the long, long, long goodbye. Well, while my husband was in memory care, I wanted to know more about what was happening to him and other people I could witness. And that's when I studied for and became a state certified ombudsman, which is an advocate for people who are in memory care, board care, so on and so forth. So my husband was basically somewhere between middle and late stage until he caught the pneumonia virus. That put him into late stage. That is where the individual loses the ability to respond to their environment, to carry on conversations, and eventually to lose control of movement. As memory and cognitive skills continue to worsen, Personality changes may take place, and individuals need extensive help with daily life. He was in the hospital with the pneumonia virus for 8 days. 3 of those days, he was in ICU, where you could only visit with them 10 minutes at a time. They couldn't get his temperature down for 3 days, and I thought for sure I was going to lose him at that point. Fortunately, he pulled through. But hospitals are disasters on people with cognitive issues. And voices really need to be raised for advocacy to assist those in a hospital environment. There are noisy carts rattling along the corridor, people calling you honey and sweetie, which is not your name, offering you food that you're unfamiliar with, lights flickering, voices of people, fingers probing, blood pressure pumping machines, and of course feet clicking on linoleum. A hospital environment is never silent. Perhaps they cannot be cured, but they can be cared for. And also, when a person goes into the hospital who has cognitive issues, you must have a 24-hour nurse with them at all times. Going into late stage, my husband didn't know if he had seen me 10 minutes ago or a month ago. How many more times I thought, would I be Michelle? How long before I became a stranger with a familiar face to him? But my husband continued to touch the lives of others around him. Dr. Smith, this is from his ombudsman. He said, Dr. Smith is a lovely resident who is happy with his care. He is a gentleman. And by the way, that's a term I heard all of our lives from others. He is a gentleman who is dearly loved by other residents and, of course, all the staff. Sure, he struggles with his memory and orientation, but he has taken his situation and turned it into better expressed. He has seized the opportunity to serve in his own way as a doctor on call to loving others around him. When I read this, I tear up. But they're not bittersweet tears. They're tears of joy for him being him and giving so much to others. Death is of course a loss, but living too long can also be a loss. They say when you write a book, you're an author. No, I don't feel like an author. I'm just a woman who wanted to share her story. And I'm passionate about my story and my efforts to help others. I could not have done any of these things without divine intervention. And this book could not have been written without divine intervention. You can never lose sight of the needs of our family and friends who are suffering from mental impairment. There are millions of people who, like me, have to watch as the essence of a loved one slips away. Thank you for being here, and if you have any questions, I'm open to try and answer. She didn't know. I understood your question. Is there a health issue or some kind of illness that can bring on dementia? That's what I understood. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. We'll get there. Louder. My husband's doctor explained the Lewy body dementia as protein flows through our body. Hold the mic, please. up to the plate. They had to call me at midnight and say we have to put him on antipsychotic drugs. He's out of control. What can you do? You don't have a choice in a way. He kept pulling out his IVs. He wanted to get out of the hospital. So they're just not the person has, dementia, and he's a little bit out of control. And they said, okay, you stay in the driveway. So they said, sir, come downstairs. So he comes down with the sword. And there I am in the driveway in my pajamas and robe. And they're saying, sir, drop the weapon. And you know what? It was funny. I dn't take it for what it was this man who is so gentle. The police are telling him, drop your weapon, sir.
For how long were you able to keep on cruising, and do you think that it made a positive difference?
I don't think so now, because our last trip, let me back up, an eye on him. But we travel with 2 other couples. But as we were leaving the airport in Greece, he and I are walking along, and all of a sudden, he's nowhere to be found. And I'm like, what happened to him? I'm going to have to get a leash like you have for kids. He just got in a line and a line that there's many lines in the airport. He just got in the line. And then on the ship, he could never remember the cabin number. I would write it on his hand. I'd put it in his pocket. He was never in the cabin. I would have to go look for him. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it's because he forgot. He couldn't admit that. He was waiting for me to find him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I lost him more than once. Anybody else?
Ultimately, did you return to your home, or where are you situated now?
What I did, I bought a condo to stay close to him. When he actually moved 3 times. I wasn't happy with the first place, and so on and so forth. So I always stayed close. So I bought a condo and I rented the house.
And then after he passed?
Yeah, after he passed, I didn't want to live there. No, I loved it. We loved where we were, but I didn't want to live there anymore.
Michelle, thank you for sharing all of this.
My pleasure.